So Fantastic Four is finally out, and I have been anticipating this movie like crazy. I grew up with the old Fantastic Four movies, and I've kind of since then caught up on quite a few comic books. I still have a lot to learn, but I was super excited for this movie. And throughout the process of this movie being announced and everything happening in between its release, it was a chaotic process of getting actors officially announced for this movie, which was, again, just pure chaos. So I kind of want to go over some of these actors and stuff that happened and rumors and leaks, because my god, there's at least 50 of these actors in between all four members. So first of all, we got to start with the official announcement of the Fantastic Four coming out at some stage. There was like no announcement of date or anything. They just announced John Watts, the director of the Spider-Man movies, to be making the Fantastic Four movie in December 11th of 2020. I remember this day very well because, of course, again, as I said, I was super excited for this. So this was huge news, and it took, just about 4 to 5 years for this to officially come out. Then in 2021 we had WandaVision come out, and in that I remember the leaks and rumors of Mr. Fantastic is going to show up in some way, just because there is going to be a scientist inside of the show who was oddly very hyped up in most of the episodes and then turned out to be absolutely no one and not Reed Richards. So that was really fun. And then of course in 2022 we had Multiverse of Madness come out, and John Krasinski was revealed to be Mr. Fantastic in the different universe that Doctor Strange visited and then turned into spaghetti. We all know that one. And if you want an honorable mention, we got to see Johnny Storm, which was, I guess, the return of Chris Evans as him inside of Deadpool and Wolverine, which also had a really bad ending for him. They really did not like Fantastic Four. But this is where the interesting stuff started to happen with the leaks and rumors. And all of this information is actually gotten from one Reddit post, which was incredibly made by Hubert T-Man on the Marvel Studios Spoilers Reddit. I will link it down in the description because there's no way that I've included every single actor leaked possible, and this person broke it down perfectly and beautifully, and literally dates and locations and people. I won't be going into that immense detail just because I want to talk about the actors themselves, and this is where I got it from because this was pretty accurate in my opinion. So first of all, we gotta start off with Reed Richards, my favorite Fantastic Four member. Some of these are actually kind of true, at least just because they did come up quite often with different leakers, and I will point out the ones that I did notice. So first up we have Dev Patel. I do remember this was like one of the first ones that started coming out after John Krasinski was showing up in 2022, and I remember being like, I mean, hell yeah. None of these castings was I opposed to, apart from some, but it's honestly for some other actors mainly. Then we had Adam Driver, which was, I think, one of, if not the most common casting, apart from Pedro Pascal, which started showing up closer to the official release date or official announcement, which was last year 2024 on Valentine's Day. I remember that day very well as well. But yeah, Adam Driver, that would have been actually very cool. I don't know how his chemistry would have worked with Vanessa Kirby since she was officially cast as Sue or the Invisible Woman, but yeah, that would have been interesting. Matt Smith, which again, I don't know if this was a leak because of his looks or if he was also common, but it was more of the one that was more disproven by other leakers. Of course, John Krasinski, but that was just, he got killed. That was about it. They weren't going to bring him into the main MCU, and I was completely fine with that. And honestly, after seeing him in that suit and everything, I was like, as much as I would have loved you to be Mr. Fantastic because I, like everybody else, wanted you to be him, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you not being him. Jake Gyllenhaal, which I think is also very interesting because of course he played Mysterio in the MCU, and I know that this is going to be like a different alternate universe, which we didn't know at the time. That would have been a bit odd. Penn Badgley, which I need to point out, if I pronounce any of these names really bad, I'm really sorry, just because I'm bad at pronunciations. But this guy is from You. Remember that show? I think it ended. I don't know how to feel about that one. He gives off creepy vibes after that role, especially after playing it for so long. Diego Luna, which is of course our boy Andor from the Star Wars universe, which, you know what, I would have also been okay with. Tom Ellis, which I think plays Lucifer inside of like that Lucifer show, which again, if they're going off of looks, kind of gives off a Reed Richards, but yeah, sure. Christopher Abbott, yeah. Jamie Dornan, Cillian Murphy, which I don't know, I would see him more as Doctor Doom, but again, he's not Romani, so I don't know how to feel about that one. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Jim Sturgis, oh my god, Eddie Redmayne, and then of course Pedro Pascal. The reason I didn't have much to say about other ones was because they were kind of not really 100%, and I think they were just random people on the internet spitballing random castings. But of course, we ended up with Pedro Pascal, and I couldn't be more happier because he he knocked it out of the park and he was incredible. I cannot wait to see more of him. From here, let's quickly move over to Sue Storm, who seems to have been the one that was like cast mainly at the start, and one of the most common names popping up was of course Vanessa Kirby, which I do find very interesting because compared to like, let's say Reed Richards, the most common name was Adam Driver, and then we went in a completely different direction and got of course Pedro Pascal. But with this, Vanessa Kirby was very common with other actresses or actors, whatever you want to call it. First up is Jennifer Lawrence, which if you know who she is, she was in like a bunch of movies back in the past. I just know her as Mystique and Hunger Games. What's her name? Katniss Everdeen, right? Kristen Bell, Margot Robbie, which would have been very odd, especially since she's just Harley Quinn in my head, but I would have been very open to this. This is definitely one of the castings that I would have been very intrigued by, because considering what Vanessa Kirby did with the role inside of the movie, I think Margot Robbie would have done an incredible job. But again, Vanessa Kirby, pull through, mother, whatever people call her, cunt face, whatever that photo is, or whatever, I don't know, I fuck with it. Daisy Edgar Jones, Mila Kunis, Jodie Comer, which was also a very common name, Allison Williamson. One thing that I thought was interesting to include here, or at least in the Reddit post, was a quote, or at least a version of Sue Storm that they wanted to go for, and this was from Jeff Snyder or the Hot Mic podcast, and it was a Dakota Johnson type. What the hell does that mean? Were you gonna go with Dakota Johnson, Madam Web, or what? Like, weird. Emma Stone, probably just because she was blonde, at least in Spider-Man as Gwen Stacy, but apart from that, sure. Amanda Seyfried, Maddie Hansen, Jane Levy, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Elizabeth Lale, and of course Vanessa Kirby. The most common one, Margot Robbie, I think, and maybe Jennifer Lawrence here and there, but also Comer, Jodie Comer. Yeah, that was a common one. Now moving on to Ben Grimm, or The Thing, my second favorite character in the Fantastic Four. Honestly, I love them all, but I don't know, Reed and The Thing, just their dynamic, and I guess Johnny and I don't want to get into all the nits and grits or whatever, but first thing I gotta mention is one of the weirdest leaks that was included in a few, maybe 2 or 3 different people, which might have been just copying one another, was that there was a rumor that Ben Grimm was gonna be female. So we were gonna have a female Ben Grimm, or well, I don't know what the female version of the name Ben is, but that would have been definitely something that I would have been opposed for. Just adapt them and then explore different versions with different realities. I think having them as being the Fantastic Four, just slap them in from the comics into this. Don't change up too much, but yeah, I don't know, female Ben Grimm, no thank you. But as for the actors, Daveed Diggs was probably one of the most common names, but of course the actor who did end up getting cast, which was Ebon Moss, I'm not gonna pronounce that last name, was also very, very common. Like, most of the leakers from the beginning were saying his name, and it ended up being true, but Daveed Diggs was also a very common name, and I think some of these castings were official, it's just they didn't go through fully, which I think is an interesting perspective to be like, I wonder what, you know, let's say Margot Robbie and Adam Driver and Daveed Diggs and let's say Paul Mescal, which was also Mescal was also a very common Johnny name. We will be getting into that. Like, what if that Fantastic Four happened? How different at least their dynamic on screen would have been, because I think Kevin Feige did confirm that they weren't really going for like their chemistry as much, it was just their acting. I think that's what I picked up on, like, from recent reviews or stuff like that. Anyway, back to Ben Grimm. Seth Rogen was also considered, maybe, or it was just another name to just spitball out there. Paul Walter Hauser, which of course became Mole Man, but an interesting quote from that I thought was funny was that it was going to be a fat white guy. Yeah, I guess Paul Walter Hauser fit that role in a certain way. Jason Biggs, Ben Foster, Jason Segel, which was honestly one of my like top actors just because I love him as Marshall, and I could see him being a serious or funny like actor, but again, Ebon Moss blew it out of the park. Brilliant acting. I could glaze Fantastic Four first steps as much as I can or as much as I want, but I am very biased. I love them too much. And then of course, again, Ebon Moss, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because he was, in a way, by other leakers, said that he might play either Galactus or Herald of Galactus, which is of course the Silver Surfer, but that completely changed. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. And then moving on to Johnny. The first one, as I did bring up before, Paul Mescal, which I think is from Gladiator 2. I would have been okay with that. I remember that face being like everywhere as the official cast or leaked rumor actor, blah 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 blah. I think Joseph Quinn did such a good job that now he is officially Johnny in my eyes. Like, he was probably one of the best characters inside of that movie. I absolutely adore what they did with the Johnny character, which I guess maybe Paul could have done as well, which he definitely could have, because most of these actors are brilliant. But apart from that, we also have Jack Quaid. I guess, sure, I remember that one being common as well. Austin Butler, which a lot of leakers said that he was fighting to get this role. I think that's very interesting. Sure, I think he could have pulled it off, but he's a bit older. Like, Joseph Quinn is also older, but I don't know. Like, if they cast Austin Butler, like the younger one that we did see in like older movies, yeah. But now, I don't know, he just has the Elvis voice all the time. Nicholas Galitzine, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, Nick Robinson, Ross Lynch, and lastly, Rudy Pankow, and Joseph Quinn, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of actors, and another thing I guess I forgot to bring up was that Pedro Pascal was being eyed for villain role at one stage. I think it's very interesting because this is like one of the most important themes that we are getting introduced to in the MCU. It has been adapted 3 times before if you include the like sequel to the 2005 Fantastic Four, or if you want to look at the old cancelled Fantastic Four movie. This was the 5th attempt, but let's just say it's the 4th attempt by like first attempts of Fantastic Four. And I think another franchise that is kind of going through this, or at least another team inside of the MCU or even DC. First of all, MCU wise, X-Men. The X-Men are currently going through this where there's constant rumored actors from this to that. And then if we're gonna bring up quickly DC, it's happening with the Batman, it's happening with Wonder Woman, and I think it's an interesting process to go through. Then the casting comes out and people are like, oh my god, this is so bad. Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, those are like the only 2 actors that anyone ever complained about, and now people absolutely love it. So whoever's gonna end up being cast as Batman, Wonder Woman, or the X-Men, people are gonna hate it, and at the end of the day, they're gonna love it. And what is my opinion about most of these actors overall? I would have been open to quite a few, not open to quite a few as well. Some of the ideas, like including Margot Robbie, Adam Driver, Daveed Diggs potentially, or Jason Segel, and Paul Mescal would have been very interesting. But yeah, that's it for the video. This is like my first video. If you have watched this far, quite impressive. Whoever you are, thank you so much. Subscribe, like. I've just started this channel and I'm gonna be uploading maybe daily, every second day, yapathons like this, from just like talking about Marvel and DC mainly, and games, comics, movies. I'm a nerd. I want to talk.